Welcome to this tutorial on a cut and fold paper tree using a single sheet of paper. To start off with your materials, you'll need a single sheet of paper in the color that you're looking for. In this case, I'm going to use red, and a paper folder. The first thing you need to do is actually fold the paper over to make a square. I'm using a size A4 sheet of paper here, which is standard outside the US. 8.5 by 11 would also work. You'll just get a slightly differently sized square. So you want to go ahead and bring one of those corners up to the other side of the paper, and using your paper folder, press clean through to make a nice even fold all the way down. What this does is gives you a nice start for your square. Then you can bring a ruler and use this to run alongside that edge. Or if you don't have a ruler, you can just trace it with a pencil down the side and then cut along that line. Now I'm going to use a craft knife to cut down because that's what I'm used to. Feel free to use a pair of scissors. Anything will work. You just need to go ahead and get that paper into a square shape. So then you can remove the excess on the side and bring back that square. This is actually a valley fold because you can see the top of that crease is actually pointed away from me. It's on the other side of that paper. It'd be called a mountain fold if it's facing towards you. I'm using paper here that's actually quite thick. It's a bit card-like. And the reason for this is that you can see it. You should be using paper that's a bit thinner, more like printer paper, or a little bit thicker than that at worst. So the next step is you take those two bottom edges and bring them up to the top. So you're creating another valley fold horizontally through the center. You can go ahead and use your folder or just your fingernail. A folder is not necessary. I'm using one specifically because this is in fact card, and so that makes it much easier to fold it, but it's not strictly necessary for you. Then you're going to go ahead and take this piece of paper and make another horizontal fold on the other axis of the paper. So you open it up, make sure that that fold you just made is straight up and down and pointing away from you. And then you'll take that bottom edge up to the top again, align those two corners, and then align the other two corners. And once those are set, go ahead, press down from the center, and then finish making that fold. And we're going to open that up as soon as we make sure that crease is nice and solid. There we go. And then rotate the paper. Now we're going to flip that paper over so that that mountain fold is now facing us, the one that was a valley fold. So you can see that the straight up and down here are both mountain folds, right? And then we're going to make a valley fold. So you bring that bottom right corner up to the top left. Align those two. And then you're going to press down, making a valley fold right through the other diagonal axis of this square. So pay close attention. You can see it folds down, right? So it comes down. You want to then flip that back over so that it's mountain fold towards you, and then bring the corners on the right and left sides together, right, like this, and then you'll be able to push down from the top, creating this smaller square that's been bisected on the diagonal. Right? So this should be straightforward. Just go ahead and make sure that all of those creases are solid. I'm just going to give it a little extra fold there. Right? So all of these bits are little flaps that have been created by the way that you folded it, and they should all be the same. So then you're going to want to rotate this, paying attention to where those flaps are, slightly to the right, so that then that crease is actually horizontal. Because what we're going to do is take one of the little flaps off to the side and then squash them down. So bring up the bottom one and get your finger in between them, like this. And you want to take that crease in the center and go ahead and line it up with the crease on the other side. I'm going to use the folder again here because this card is a bit thicker than your paper should be, so I get a nice even crease where I want it to be. But you go ahead and line up that center with the crease on the other side, and that will give you the perfect shape. And then you go ahead and drag it down and make that crease on each side. Just make sure that's nice and smooth. And you're going to do this again on the next side. So you'll rotate this again and just fold it down in half like that. See, so now you've got another two pieces folded together. So you'll take the next larger side and repeat that same process. So again, go in, start to press down, make sure to align that center fold with the center fold on the other side. And then go ahead and press that out nice and flat. Then fold it over to ensure it's right. Perfect. And it matches up with those other two. Do the same thing on this side, where you press it down, line it up in the center, and then go ahead and press down to make that final fold. You can then close that side down, make sure all of your sides are even, rotate it so it's a bit easier, and do this last side. Again, pay attention a bit to the point at the top, but it's best to line up that center fold with the fold on the other side. And then you'll get a nice, even, crisp shape. Right, so there we go. So you can actually see now that these things are symmetrical on each side, these little tabs here. We're going to cut those off in a second, but it's important that it looks like this before you start cutting. So go ahead and use your ruler again, or just your straight scissors, and slice off these tabs on the bottom. What you want to be left with is that nice crisp triangle shape that you can already see starts to look like a tree. Now I'm going to have a little bit more trouble than you are because again I'm using really thick card here, so I have to slice through a couple of times to get where I'm going. Then you're left with these little bits on the side that you don't need. I'm going to go ahead and slice the rest of this off, nice and clean. This card's much thicker than I anticipated. There we go. Perfect. Now just go ahead and make sure that that's stayed nice and smooth there. And I'm going to start to mark out along the top 4 divisions. Now I'm going to use my ruler here to measure them out. This is not actually necessary for you at all, but you want to make sure that those divisions that I'm going to slice in here are in fact parallel to the bottom of the tree shape. Now all I'm doing here is just making sure that they're all equidistant up and down using my ruler and a little pencil here to make sure that they're all in the right place. And then I'm going to take my knife and cut through parallel to the bottom to create the places that we're going to fold over to give this tree its final look. You can do this with scissors, you can do it with a craft knife, whatever you want. Just do not cut all the way through. You don't want to get to that center, you just want to get pretty close to it, because it's as you fold that over that you'll get the shape, but you don't want to actually chop off your tree. We're just finishing up these lines here. And once you're all done and you've cut all the way through each of the flaps, you're going to start folding them over. So you just take one of those corners that you've created and fold it over towards the bottom, like so. You make it parallel to the bottom on the bottom one, and then try for that each time. Depending on how long your cuts are and where they are, your little triangle shape will look a little bit different. Just go to where it's easiest and don't let the paper tear at that join. And so you're just going to keep doing this up each section of that tree. And it'll get a little bit harder as you get to the top, but it's not very difficult. Pretty straightforward there. Remember, this is a little bit thicker than what you should be using, so it's a little bit harder to do. And then just with that final one, bend that down as well. And you're going to do this again on each flap, and you'll essentially just fold the flap to the right and go through to the next part, and do that again and again. And we just start doing the same. Each time, fold it over, fold the flap to the right, and start again. This is very easy. If you mess up a little bit, go back, fix it, adjust it. None of these are a problem. It'll get a little bit thicker towards the end, and you have to flip it over to the other side and do it. But it's just the same technique each time, all the way until you've gotten that very last flap, and you fold over those last tabs. And then when you've gotten here, that very last bit, congratulations, you're so very close. You just might need to go back and fold out some of those leaves so that they look a little bit better and the tree's a bit more even. Make sure nothing's stuck together. There you go. Straightforward right from the top. There you go. Nice cut and fold paper Christmas tree. Single sheet of paper. Super easy. Isn't that cute?